Asher Cheyenne, Kathleen, Suzanne, Beth, Harley. Hi, Harley. Amy in California. Paul in Kalamazoo. Oh my God, crazy.
How do we turn off this little?
How do we?
This way.
Wow, they're really up early from California.
Oh my God, you're right.
Who's in California?
Who's in California? Did I say California? I don't think I did actually. Okay, there we go. So this morning we have a very exciting parsha as usual. We're nearing the end of the book of Dvarim, but we're not quite there, which means we're nearing the end of the Torah, right? We're almost ready for Simchat Torah, the holiday of the joy of celebration of completing the Torah. So now, today we're going to do Ha'azinu. So let's, Gil, if you can, share the bracha over Torah study. Elise, do you feel like blessing this morning?
Honor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen. Amen. Blessed are you, source of the universe, who has sanctified us with your commandments and given us this endless source of wisdom to soak into. Amen. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive in. Soon the people in the room will have a paper copy, but for now we can use the screen. And I've called this ephemeral and eternal, light and heavy, what endures. Parshat Ha'azinu. Let's see, is Ronnie Sharfman here, by the way? Is she in the Zoom god? Ronnie, people can unmute themselves. Okay, so Ronnie's a bit of a Edmund Yabes scholar, so I wanted her to weigh in on this poem. But if she's not here, that's okay. So this poem echoes the philosopher, the 20th century philosopher George Steiner, who says our homeland, the book, right? So the Torah as our homeland, right? The book is our homeland, as opposed to a piece of land being our homeland. And he writes, we had a land and a book. Our land is in the book. He said, you will lose your hands. I said, what use are my hands now? He said, you will lose your lips. I said, what use are my lips now? He said, your eyes will be dry lakes. I said, I know the book by heart. So these are the words of Edmund Yabes, Egyptian Jewish poet, who moved to France in 1956. And I took this from an essay by Rabbi Manika, I think it was Gomri. And she says that Yabes knew firsthand what the book of Dvarim seeks to establish, that a book can become a site of exile, longing, and identity. And that the written word can be a place of hope. So I'm curious what people think. Like, I'm not really sure, like, what does it mean? Gil, can you admit people? Somehow it keeps coming up for me. Just admit all. That would be probably the easiest. What do people think this means? I mean, it's actually pretty heavy stuff, right? It's intense, that you'll lose everything. Does that mean that we'll lose everything if we don't have a land? And all that will be left is the book? And that by knowing the book by heart, as opposed to having the written version, we still have a home. our land is in the book. So if you want to, some quick comments, I think in the chat, if you have any insights about this. Or in the room. Or from the room, any quick comments about the poem?
Something like, if we don't have the land, we have the book. If you lose the book, we lose the land, lose the land, lose the book. It's really big enigma.
Big enigma, okay. Beth Brown.
And therefore,
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I think what he's saying is that even if we lose everything else, our physical land, control of our bodies, all the things that we normally would rely on, we still have Torah. That Torah is always there for us, it's with us, and that this is something of permanence for us as Jews.
Great, Beth. And that's echoed here in some of the comments. Hazinu poetry we can memorize keeps the text alive no matter what. From Asher Chaim, Deborah Tolushkin. The book is our soul. We never lose our soul. We know the book by heart. And Kathy Lynn says, I took it to this place. Awareness is beyond and transcendent of all material things. There's a light we carry within us, no matter what happens to us. I think of Viktor Frankl in this moment and his experience in the camp. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
I was thinking that there's a couple things in the poem that are striking. One is that it begins in the past tense. We had a land in the book, and then our land is in the book. Not sure what to make of that. But I'm deeply moved by the idea that the book is the land. It's our home. It's where we land. Also that the senses listed here don't include ears, and the portion is Ha'azina, which is about ears.
Beautiful. Wow. Did everyone in Zoom land hear that? Can you hear it? No? Yes, no. Okay. Elise, if you could speak a little bit louder, just especially repeat your last point.
So that there are several senses listed here: hands, touch, lips, taste, eyes, see, but not ears. And the portion is ha'azinu, which is lend ears.
Beautiful. Wow. So losing everything, we still have this book. I guess what I was wondering, I was talking about this with my chavruta this morning, if we don't have a land, is the poet saying that we lose everything? I'm not sure. You will lose your hands. Why? Like, why? Or maybe it's a more human thing. We lose, right, our capacities bit by bit.
Or that the work that we do can distract us from the book, and the book is the core. And all you need for the book is to listen.
is to what?
Listen. Beautiful. Okay, so with that, let's think about our parsha, which is called Ha'azina, as Lisa just said. And, if we recall, we don't really have to read this. I just want to make reference to it. Let's go back to Exodus for a moment and think about, the genesis of Moshe's career, so to speak, when he felt like he didn't have any words. And now we move into this incredible poetry, right? This incredible poetry. So not only did he become a man of words, he became a poet, right? Which is incredible. And he says, Bi Adoni lo ish dvarim anochi gam mitmol gam mishushan gam me'az dabercha el avdecha ki kvad pet kvad lashon anochi. So Moses says, please, O Lord, I've never been a man of words, either in times past or now that you've spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And God says, and this is interesting because it's similar to the end of the book of Job, where, God insists on being sort of the provider of everything. Like who, why do you think that you have this? You only have it because of me. V'yomer Adonai elav mi sam pela adam. Who gives human beings speech? Mi yasu ilem o cheresh o pikeach o iver. Who makes human beings dumb or deaf, seeing or blind? Hello, Anochi Adonai. Isn't it me, God? Right? Or Yud-Heh Vav-Heh. And then this last line, which I actually think is very sweet, because after this kind of, booming sort of challenge and confrontation to Moshe, like, where do you think you get speech from after all? He says, "Va'atalech, and now go, va'anochi eyet, and I'll be with your mouth," right? It's very sweet and sort of compassionate. V'horeiticha asher tudaber. I will instruct you on what to say, but horeticha, right? Instruct is also from the same word as Torah, and also from the same word as parents, right? Horim. And we'll see more imagery of God as parent as we go on. Okay, so now we go back to what happened last week, just for a moment to remind us what is the function of this poem, right? What is going on with this poem? So in Vayelech, there's this kind of calamitous cycle that's detailed. Like, you will lose your faith, you will go into exile, you will forget about me, I will hide my face. This is going to happen again and again. And here's the antidote to that, right? So God says to Moshe, so therefore, write down the song and teach it to the people of Israel. Sima pifihem, put it in their mouths.
But why is it against?
Well, let me just finish the verse.
Yeah.
Sima b'fihem l'ma'an tiyeh li hashira hazot le'ed b'nei Israel. In order that this poem may be my witness against the people of Israel. So that's really interesting. So Alina wants to know, why is it against? It's interesting, even though you could read it that way literally.
Is the Hebrew word different?
It's big, so it's kind of against. Let's see if Asher Chaim or anyone else disagrees. But the way we read it last year, it's interesting that Tomas just walked in the last time. It's interesting that Tomas just walked in here, because Tomas said last week, if I'm remembering correctly, that there's something about the shirah, about the poem, about the song, is that even though we have this cycle of abandonment and reconnection, if we have this song, then we're not really abandoned, because it's like the song of memory, right? It's a song that sort of transcends the cycle, right? Which I thought was such a beautiful point.
So in Kabbalah, memory is, and we know from science that memory is completely unreliable. What we remember is the last time we remembered it. But impression, rishimo, is different. And what happened to us at Sinai was a rishimo. We were imprinted a certain way. So this idea of—
Wait, so Elise, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah.
So Lisa's saying that memory and impressions are different.
Right.
So what's an impression if not a memory? Unpack that a little bit.
Right. So
because I'm really interested in your point.
Yeah. So
because trauma also, I think, creates impressions, not only memories.
It's true. But how we understand it, the impression is always there. But how we respond to the impression can be influenced by our memory. And so when we speak about sacred impressions, it's different than physical impressions. And sacred impressions are essentially the impression of light, a difficult concept to absorb, but it changes us. So if something is being put in our mouths, that's an impression. And I think it's deliberate that it says Bivnei Yisrael, not Lifnei Yisrael.
And instead of
where it
two.
says at the end,
Right.
Le'ed Bivnei Yisrael.
That's an impression.
There's something about that that's more powerful, more direct,
Exactly.
more immediate.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Did people on Zoom land hear that conversation? Yes. Okay. Good.
Which way do you have to face to hear it? That way?
Yes. Okay. So I don't know if anyone in Zoom land said anything in the chat about the Bivnei Israel, if it's against or not. That's how I'm reading the Hebrew.
Asher Chaim says, put something in there.
Okay, Asher Chaim. Purely contextual, but not the pshat of the word. Okay. Bivnei Israel, a witness in the midst of the people.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay, I
think
like
that's
that
better
much
too.
better. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I think Jay is saying words are things and thus have a material quality, hence the need for sense. That's really interesting. Although Dvarim, I think biblically are only words not yet referred to as things. So, but perhaps you're right that heaviness, that weight is there. Okay, and Devar Tilish can also in the midst sounds right. Okay, Alter and Fox both translate as against. I love this group. Okay.
They're not here.
Well, they're here in the larger room, right? The larger room, the field of consciousness that we're in. But now look at this, right? Look at how this poem is written in the Torah. It's just all so beautiful, right? It's written poetically in these lines and in two parallel columns, right? So each half a line has Hashemayim Adabra, Tishma Haaretz Nifi has its parallel. So listen, O heavens, and I will speak, and the earth will listen, and I will say the words of my mouth, something like that. So each phrase is parallel to the other one, not only visually, but actually in terms of content.
I'm taken by the word against.
Just as Alina was taken by it.
Because you would think that for, would be more appropriate.
Yeah, because we want this testimony.
But I get it though. It feels to me like we're a constant enemy to Hashem. We want to do one thing and Hashem wants us to do something else.
Okay, or we're a constant enemy to ourselves.
That's how I see it.
Okay, Asher Chaim. And then
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Does it say neged anywhere in there?
No,
Neged?
it does not say negative.
So why the word against?
Bi is the one letter bi is translated most often as against in this kind of context. But I'm going to go on. Asher Chaim.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this poem being a witness in the people of Israel, among the people of Israel, means that it's not an accusation, it's just a fact that when you find yourself in exile, the most productive way out is self-examination, self-scrutiny, looking to this witness and the cycles of history and asking, can we do better? Can we dig ourselves out of this hole?
It's also right. And it's the text, it's the witness, it's the testimony that reminds us that we're not abandoned.
Right. Yeah, like Jeremiah and Ezekiel saving the day by saying, it's not that God lost, it's that God won and you lost, but it's only temporary because it's in the context of a much longer relationship. Look at this poem, look at this whole context, and you'll see cycles of exile and return, of estrangement and reconciliation.
Exactly. And there's something about knowing one's cycles either individually or even as a people that's redemptive in itself. Because you understand the bigger picture and hopefully you don't get caught up in those moments. You don't identify too much with those moments. Okay, I see Jay, and then I'm going to, and actually, Asher Chaim, I'm going to ask you to read the next piece, if that's okay. Jay.
I think it's also important to remember in many of the commentaries that who is actually called upon to listen are the heavens and the mountains.
Yeah, we're about to get into that.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, hold your comment, and we'll see if we don't get to your points, and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay, Asher Chaim, would you read, please?
האזינו השמיים ואדברה ותשמע הארץ אמרי פי. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. May the earth listen to the words of my mouth. Ya'arof kammatar l'tei tizal katal imrati. May my discourse come down like the rain and my speech like the dew. Kis'irim ale deshe v'chirevivim ale esev. Like showers on young growth, like droplets on the grass. Ki Shem Adonai ekra havu godel lelohenu. Either because or while I invoke the name of Yud He Vav He, give glory to our God. Asur tamim pa'alo ki chol derachav mishpach. El emunah v'yin avel sadiq v'yashar hu. The rock, God's actions are perfect. All of God's paths are just.
So let's just, sorry, did I interrupt you?
Well, I can finish the verse. A
Yeah.
faithful God in whom there is no falsity, righteous and upright.
So I think these, the variety of images coming together are really extraordinary. Like, the softness of water and dew and showers on young growth, droplets on the grass, giving way to a rock. God's our rock. And note, and we'll see this in a minute, we'll see more of this in a minute, how many images of creation are evoked here at the end of Dvarim, right? So now we're on heavens and earth, and you'll see more of in a couple of minutes. Yeah, Paul and then Alina.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Going back to the poem and relating it to this passage, Lori Schwartz put a comment in the chat, and she said that all consciousness comes to us through the gift of life, which is embodiment. And embodiment is the way that we apprehend, the way that we realize and understand the world. We think with our entire body, with our hands, with our eyes. We know that scientifically, the hand-eye connection being so important. And just in this passage here, in the song, what we can understand as metaphors, that my speech distills as the dew, like showers on young growth, droplets on the grass. We only understand that from having an embodied life. The earth is a living entity, which is why we have to renew it every 7 years.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll see more about that in Rashi, like why the heavens and the earth are evoked as witnesses, right? I mean, part of the reason is, the heavens and the earth are always there, and Moshe won't be. And Moshe knows he's about to die. So who does Moshe call upon as witnesses at this moment in time? Okay, Alina.
So I just thought of a different word for a different meaning of against, something against, leaning on something. So it's
nice.
It's against, the dew hits the grass, it's against it, it's next to it. So there's another way, it's not necessarily a hostile thing.
Yeah, beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful. Up against.
Up against,
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Asher Chaim, back to you.
Shehit lo banav mumam dor ikeshu fatal tol. Is crookedness or perversity attributable to God? No, it's the kids who are at fault.
So God is perfect. God's the rock. God doesn't change, right?
Although later, the notion of water, drops of Torah affecting a person just as drops of water can erode a rock. I'm sorry, it came to mind. Shechek lo banav mumam dor erkeshu fatal tal, a bad generation. Ha ladonai tigmeluzot am naval velo hacham halahu avicha karnecha hu aska vaychoneneka. Are you going to put this all on God, you foolish nation, unwise? Isn't it God who is your parent and your staff? God who made you and established you. Zechor yemot olam, binu shnot dor vador, she'al avicha v'yagedcha zechenecha v'yomru lach. Remember years past. Try to understand the years of previous generations. Ask your father, he will tell you. Your elders will tell you.
So those are other witnesses, the ancestors, right? Your parents, your grandparents. Okay, so I want to look at, and perhaps this is where Jay was going, we'll see. This Rashi, this comment on Shamayim, Hazinu Shamayim V'Tishma Haaretz. So Rashi here says, Sha'ani matre bahem b'Yisrael, v'tehiyu edim b'davar. That I warn Israel and be you witnesses to this matter. So while Moshe is warning, Moshe has witnesses. Shekach amarti lahem she'atem tehiyu edim. And so I have told them that you will be witnesses. Okay, v'tishma haaretz. And why did Moshe specifically call upon the heavens and earth to witness, to testify, or be a witness to this? Amar Moshe. Moshe said, Ani basar v'dam, I am only flesh and blood. Machar ani meit, tomorrow I'm going to die. In Yomru Israel lo kibalnu aleinu habrit. If Israel says we didn't receive any covenant, miba umachachisha, who will come and contradict them? And that's why l'pichach he'id bahem shamayim ba'atz. And that's why the heavens and earth came to testify against them. Edim shehen kayamim le'olam. Witnesses that will be forever existing, right? Will be eternal. And more. The od she'im yizku yavo ha'edim v'yitnu scharam. And a further reason was that if they should act worthily, the witnesses might come and give them their reward. Hagefen titen priyah. So the vine will give its fruit, and the earth will give its produce, and the heavens will give its due. But if they are guilty or should be obligated for their actions or beholden, there should be consequences to their actions, then the hand of witnesses might first be against them, meaning, and now we get into sort of Shema language, Va'asar et hashamayim v'lo yiyeh matar v'adama lo titen et tivua. And then the heavens will be closed, and there won't be dew for the earth, and the earth will not give its produce. And after that, you will perish quickly through the nation. So here it seems like our current conditions have been predicted by Rashi and Ha'azinu, which is the earth and the heavens are serving as witnesses and have turned against us because of our own actions. And Jay, I don't know if that's what you were getting to before.
Actually, it's making me think even more, because I actually in a poem took Rashi in a different direction, but that last line makes me think that yet there's another direction to go. I'll send it to you.
Okay, great. Okay,
Can I
Tomas.
ask a question?
Yeah.
And it's not a very coherent question, but
Okay, try it.
this page, some of the passages here, both from Rashi and in the poem.
Yeah. Speak a little louder in that
So
direction.
the passages seem a little discordant to me especially after Yom Kippur, because we've just been reminded of the 13 attributes. We've been reminded of this infinite mercy. We've been reminded of people's inherent goodness and the image of their creator and their ability to change. And here you have, oh, you're dull, you're weightless, you suck. As soon as Moses dies, you're gonna fuck it all up again. It's just, it's not a very nice image.
No,
of
it's
the
not very
people.
nice, actually. It's really not nice at all. It's not gentle.
No, so with that kind of critique, anything but gentle, and then followed with these reminders of, oh, and if you don't behave, going to take away the rain, going to make it hard for you. So there's threats, there's disparagements, there's like all this other discourse that one associates, frankly, with a really, speaking of fathers, the wrong kind of father.
An abusive kind of father.
Yeah, abusive, manipulative, and all the rest.
And I mean, I can understand why Moshe would be speaking that way, knowing he's going to die soon and sort of being desperate for the people to understand Moshe's message. But it does seem like there's rage here.
I mean, exactly, and I don't understand the source, because in my own limited experience as a teacher, like if you have students and you tell them they're great, they will be great. And if you have students and you tell them they suck, they will suck.
So that's what I was going to raise.
Self-fulfilling.
Like, even if we could understand where Moshe's coming from, is this effective?
Yeah.
Right? Is this effective?
Yeah.
And how do we feel listening to it? Right? Because in a way, it's addressed to us as well.
I mean, Moshe is angry all the way back to killing the Egyptian.
Moshe definitely has anger management issues.
We know he has a temper.
Yeah.
But it's very disorienting, and I don't
Yeah.
think it's just Moses' character that's in play.
What do you mean?
Oh, well, he speaks for God. He is a prophet. He's been selected as the voice.
Right. So are these his emotions or are they God's emotions?
Yeah, that's what
It's
I'm
a
asking.
really great question. Okay, so let me just survey what's going on here. How many hands are up? And okay, so I see Wendy in the room and then Marilyn on Zoom. And of course, I have tons more material, so let's try to be brief. Okay, Wendy. I think it's a great question. It's almost like when I first read it this year, I was like, wow, what's going on here? It was almost upsetting.
Yeah.
And then it's almost been sort of like that response has been muted in me. Like I kind of forgot about it until you raise it again. So thank you.
Especially after the holidays somehow. It comes up.
Yeah, because you want that forgiving voice. Yeah. Okay, Wendy.
Even though Moshe Rabbeinu kind of delineated with both his hands that Yeshua would be the next leader, obviously he has second thoughts about it because he thinks once he's gone, the whole thing's going to fall apart. And it shows that he has no confidence in Yeshua to take the people forward.
That's interesting. So he has no confidence for whatever reason, maybe because he doesn't have confidence in Joshua, that the people are going to be successfully led into the future.
I mean, Yeshua is not mentioned, but it's obvious.
It's implied.
If the people are going to fall apart, where's their leader? And obviously he feels that the leadership is going to be inadequate to keep the people together without mentioning Joshua's name.
And this is a great moment of transition, right? There's always tremendous anxiety about transition. So there's a transition about Moshe himself dying, and then there's also transition about the people about to go into the land. Okay, Marilyn.
Yes, good Shabbos. I'm sort of going to what we just read in Yom Kippur, Acharei Mot, after the death. And for me, you start off with Rosh Hashanah, yay, birth, we'll laugh, this is great. But what happens when death gets introduced and Moses is about to die? And I was thinking, how do we deal with the inexplicable? So we might think, like he's saying, who created you? We might think that we're in control, but we have to remember, if we don't believe that we don't have control, we certainly know, and they know, that they don't have control over heaven and earth. Like that still the rain and the food and everything else, at least that points them back to God, to who's really in control.
Yeah, and back to that sort of, mystery of original creation.
Yes, and that's the first line of Bereshit. It sends you right back there to the heavens and the
We'll
earth.
see more about that in a minute. Thank you. And Laura Schwartz raised an interesting point here. She says, why are we resisting, why are we resisting the anger? Is this not needed as part of revelation? I don't know. I don't really want it as part of my revelation, but I don't know. Okay, Jen says, maybe Moshe is full of fear because he's about to die and lose control of what happens with the people. So his fear causes him not to be his best self. You know, in thinking about like when I get that angry, I think for me it comes from like a profound feeling of unsafety.
Yeah.
And that other people around me are not watching out for me. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm mad at them because they're not doing what I think they're supposed to be doing.
I think that's the classic emotions part, which I sometimes need, where the primary emotion is fear and anger is always the defense against fear.
Yes. So the primary emotion is fear. Right. I think that makes sense at this moment for sure. And we're going to get there as well. Okay, so let's look at this next piece. Here. I can't see what number this is. This is source number 8. I'll just read a couple of verses and I'll ask Asher Chaim to take over. So I learned from Rabbi David Foreman, who has a series of videos about the Parsha, which you might be interested in, called Aleph Beta. And, you know, many of them are really remarkable. And he talks about, I think pretty convincingly, about the echoes of creation here. So if we go back to creation just for a second, we say, Breshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz, Ba'aretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei tehom, ruach Elohim merchafet al pnei hamayim. When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep and a wind from God sweeping over the water. So we already saw the heavens and the earth. And now we will see a continuation of this poem, or this song, Yimsa'ehu be'eretz midbar. God found them in a desert region, Tohu. Right, so that's the tohu from tohu vavohu, the null and void or topsy-turvy, in an empty howling waste. Bilal Yisimon, Yiso V'venhu Yivonenehu. So what Rabbi David Foreman says here is that these are echoes of vohu.
Echoes of what?
Vohu, the word is tohu vavohu, means chaos. So these words are kind of oral recollections of vohu. Yitzarredhu k'ishon eino. God engirded them, watched over them. God guarded them as the pupil of God's eye. And so where do you find the darkness? In the pupil of God's eye, right, which is black. And then look at this. Kenesher ya'ir kino al gozalav yirachef. Like an eagle who rouses its nestlings, gliding down to its young. So this image of the eagle hovering over their young is just like God, the Spirit of God hovering on the waters. So, you know, that's definitely a literary echo of hovering. And I think that's perhaps one of two places.
That's a good image to just evoke.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think those are the only two places that we have Merachefet, but I'm not sure.
What's the Hebrew for pupil? What's the
For what?
The pupil. What's
Pupil
the
is Kishon Eino, so the pupil of his eye. Yifros Knafa V'kachehu Yisa'ehu Al Evrato. So did God spread wings and take them, bore them along on pinions. Okay, Asher Chaim, do you want to continue?
Yeah, you had me looking up to see if there's another Yerachef. Adonai badad yanhenu ve'ein immo el nechar. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh alone guides them. There is no other foreign god associated with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Yarkivehu al bamate aretz, vayochal tenuvot sadai, vayinkehu dvash misela v'shemen mehalamish tzur. God causes them to ride atop the high places of the earth, to feast on the yield of the earth, nursing them with honey from the rock and oil from the flinty rock.
So God as nurser, right? God not only as father, but as nursing, right? Nursing the Israelites from honey from the rock. What a beautiful, beautiful image. Let me say one more thing, Batya, and I'll come to you. So, it occurs to me, I'm still thinking about Tomas's question. It occurs to me, like we started off saying, like, what is ephemeral, what lasts, what endures. I think Moshe's anger might be the desperation of trying to impart what is lasting in the face of his own ephemeral nature at this moment. And that desperation, that feeling of helplessness. So that's what occurs to me. Yeah, Batya.
I haven't woken up totally. So the language.
Batya, wake up and drink your coffee.
So the language, that these dummies, that you have to do. I mean, I'm still there.
Yeah.
Thinking, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why are you talking to me like that?
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that is stubborn, doesn't want to move.
Yeah.
And I think it was said to be totally effective. Also, in addition to a harsh, that's what the harshness is all about. We're not going to coddle your stupidity.
Yeah, it's true. I'm thinking also of one friend who really challenges me, and that can have a bracing effect of waking me up, right? A little bit of harshness at the right moment.
Right.
Whether this is or isn't, I don't know.
There's a
little bit of
difference between
harshness at the right moment.
severity and cruelty.
Yes.
And I think we're trying to find that difference.
Yes, yeah, or confrontation and cruelty. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Am I missing any hands in the Zoom room? No? Okay, good. So we're going to go on to a little narrative piece, which I love, about Moshe, and this is the end of the Parsha. Asher Chaim, do you feel like continue to read? Source 11.
ויבוא משה וידבר את כל דברי השירה הזאת באוזני העם, הוא והושע בן נון. Moshe came and spoke all of the words of this poem in the ears of the nation, he along with Hoshea, son of Nun.
So there's nice, given Moshe's state, it feels good that there is that partnership there.
What's Shira? Is that equally a poem as a song?
Yeah, it could be either song or poem.
ויכל משה לדבר את כל הדברים האלה אל כל ישראל. Moshe concluded speaking all of these words to the children of Israel. Vayomer alehem, simu levavchem, and he said to them, pay attention, l'chol hadvarim asher anochi me'id bachem hayom, to all of the words that I testify in your presence today, asher tisavum et benechem, that you may command your offspring, lishmor la'asot, to observe, to carry out, at kol divrei Torah hazot, all of the words of this Torah. Ki lo davar reich hu mikem, ki hu hayechem. It's not some empty thing for you. It is your very life. Ulvadavar hazeh ta'arichun yamim al ha'adama, asher atem ovrim et hayarden shamma l'rishtah. And through these words, you will lengthen your years on the land which you are crossing the Jordan over there to inherit.
Lengthen your days.
Yamim, days, years, okay. It's all contextual. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe ve'esem hayom hazeh lemor.
Let's stop for a minute because that was a big verse, right? This is not an empty thing. It's just so power, empty word, right? These are not empty words like this, because it's your life. So that brings us back to the original poem, right? By Yabes. But this is your life. And I wonder what does that mean for us? Like that's such a big idea so that it will lengthen our days or our years on the earth.
can I quibble? There is another preposition that's stuck in my throat. Lo
Yeah.
davareku mikhem,
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a really good question.
as
So
in
say-
it's not
say
too
more.
trifling from you,
From
it's
you.
not beneath you. Min is usually separation. Be is inclusion, min is separation.
Mm. So how are you translating that given that preposition?
Among you.
It's not an empty thing from
It's
you,
not beneath you.
or it's not inaccessible to you.
From you, from you as in among you. Or within you, something.
Paul. Paul, you can unmute yourself, Paul Ullman. There you go. Unmute yourself, yeah.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes.
It seems that we're managing this huge conflict between our Jewishness as inhabitants of the land and our Jewishness as inhabitants of the ideas and words that describe the ideas. And it seems to me that this is the struggle. Because he knows that, or God knows, that we're not going to inhabit the land for very long, for all sorts of different reasons. And so what endures? If it is the physicality of the land that enables us to be Jewish, then we're not going to be Jewish for very long. So we need more than that. And so we have this multiplicity of imagery to help us manage this journey.
Beautiful, Paul. You really brought so much together. And we're going to see a poem that also speaks to that in a couple of minutes. And of course, you're echoing the original poem too that we started with. Okay, go on. We're in Memchat.
Sorry. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe be'esem hayom hazeh lemor. Yud Hey Vav Hey spoke to Moshe in the midst of today, saying, Ale el har ha'avarim hazeh har nevo, asher be'eres Moav, asher al penei Yereho. Go up to this Mount Avarim, Mount Nevo, which is in the land of Moab, which is facing Jericho. Ure'eh et eres Kena'an asher ani noten livnei Yisrael la'achuzah. And look at the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel as a holding. Umut, and die. Bahar asher ata ole shamma. In the midst of that mountain that you're going up there, asef el amecha, and be gathered to your people. Ka'asher meita Aharon achicha behor hahar, asef el amav. Just as your brother Aharon died at Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. Al asher ma'altem bi betoch b'nei Yisrael, because you broke faith with me in the midst of the Israelites, b'mei merivat Kadesh midbar Sin, regarding the waters of Merivah in Kadesh, wilderness of Sin. Al asher lo keddashtem oti betoch b'nei Israel, because you didn't enhance my holiness in the midst of the people of Israel. Ki min neged tir'eh et haares v'shamma lo tavo el haares asher ani noten livnei Israel. From afar you will see the land, but there you will not enter to the land which I am giving to the children of Israel.
So, and it's interesting, given what we're learning and all the images of like soft and hard and enduring and ephemeral, what Moshe did is hit a rock instead of speak to it. Right? He was confused about, what language can do, and resorted to physicality. Okay, so I want to, I'm not gonna call on people who've spoken already. I'm sorry, because there's still material I want to get to. So I'm going to go to this, a couple of things, and then I'll open the conversation. Unfortunately, I have to end on time today. So this is from a passage from The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I've quoted before, just the title. And then Paul Oman generously sent me the book. I still haven't read it, but that's my plan over this next holiday, so I'm very excited about it. But I did find this poem. Not this poem, I'm sorry, this passage, this quote, which says, "The heaviest of burdens crushes us. We sink beneath it, it pins us to the ground. The heaviest of burdens is therefore simultaneously an image of life's most intense fulfillment. The heavier the burden, the closer our lives come to the earth, the more real and truthful they become." Wow. It's so interesting to think about a burden, which can be so painful when you're burdened, and yet something that makes you real and connected to the earth. Conversely, the absolute absence of burden causes man to be lighter, or human beings, lighter than air, to soar into heights, take lead of the earth and their earthly being, and become only half real, their movements as free as they are insignificant. What then shall we choose, weight or lightness? Okay, so I'm going to read a couple of things and then open things up, and I'll let you sort of explicate them. And this was in conversation with Yuda Amichai's line from one of his poems that says, "But the greatest desire of all is to be in the dream of another, to feel a light pull like reins tugging, to feel a heavy pull like chains."
Oh, man.
And then finally, again, Yuda Amichai from Open, Closed, Open. It's all about what endures. So I'll read this and I'll just open things up. In the street on a summer evening, I saw a woman writing on a piece of paper spread out against a locked wooden door. She folded it, tucked it in between the door and doorpost, and went on her way. And I didn't see her face, nor the face of the man who would read what she had written, and I didn't see the words. On my desk lies a stone with the word "Amen" on it, a fragment of a tombstone, a remnant from a Jewish graveyard, destroyed 1,000 years ago in the town where I was born. One word, "Amen," carved deep into the stone, a final hard amen for all that was and never will return. A soft singing amen as in prayer. Amen and amen, may it come to pass. Tombstones crumble, they say words tumble, words fade away, the tongues that spoke them turn to dust. Languages die as people do, some languages rise again. Gods change up in heaven, gods get replaced. Prayers are here to stay. So we started off with an image of the book is here to stay. The book, especially learned by heart, is here to stay. And now we're ending with Hatfilot, Nashalot La'ad. Prayers are here to stay, even more than the gods, or maybe God themselves. So I'm going to stop my share. If people have already spoken, you are welcome to put your comments in the chat, and I'd love to hear from some people who have not yet spoken, if anyone would like to speak. Let me see, I'm just reading Miriam Margot's comment. To live is to love our children, to teach them the laws of life. Love and life is the way we can endure from generation to generation as a kind people in relationship to one another, to the Holy One of blessing and to the land. Now, the speech is gentle, nice, beautiful. Okay. If no one has comments, then I will take repeat comments.
I have a comment to what
Okay.
you said.
Yeah.
I thought maybe the thing was, after going through the holidays, making all these purifications of thoughts and intentions for the new year, to be reminded it wasn't just then, you got to keep it going. So it feels like that's part of what this is saying. Yeah.
Maybe it's we have to keep the harshness comes because we have to keep the gentleness going.
Yeah.
Well, I like this idea of we got to keep it going, because looking at this last poem, I was reminded yesterday, a student of mine was studying scaffolding in New York City and all these things over the sidewalks. and he said, buildings come and go, scaffolding is forever.
Did anyone hear that? That was so great. Did anyone hear that? Yeah. Scaffolding is here forever, buildings come and go.
Like the prayers to the gods.
Yeah.
And that's, what
Yeah.
is it that we keep
Yeah.
going? Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's the
Yeah.
prayers, maybe
So-
it's the scaffold.
So as a
Beautiful.
reminded, don't think it was just then, like there's a certain kind of strictness to it to even say it. Come on, it wasn't just for that last week.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the Torah is like God's words and prayer is our words, right? And which endures. And maybe it's the conversation back and forth or the space in between the conversation.
And some of us respond to a loving way, and others have to be pushed.
Yes. I know when I'm complacent or maybe stuck or even like stuck in, not even complacent, stuck in my own misery. Sometimes I need to be pushed, right? Okay, Miriam Morgan. Miriam.
And Moses.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. I love the mezuzah and the doorpost reference. What if the owner of the house is ultimately God? And the writing, the scroll you put in the mezuzah is to love. What if the meaning of the command in Deuteronomy about writing it on the doorposts of your house, write these commandments on the doors, is to write a little love note and stick it in the space between the mezuzah and the door? What if that's really what the command means?
Beautiful.
Because we take a little, piece of sheepskin and we put it and we forget about it, or maybe we touch it. But what if it's to write a new love note every single morning and put it in your doorpost?
Reminds me, a friend of mine, a friend and a teacher, Rabbi Michael Paley, says like every time he walks through the door and kisses the mezuzah, it reminds him to love and to listen. But also, if you think about the doorway, like that's more liminal than anything, right? We're coming, we're going. We don't think about, the coming and the going, right? But that the mezuzah kind of makes the coming and the going the thing. And then maybe that's all we have is the coming and going, which we actually, I think, talked about either last week or the last week before that. Okay.
Love the poem. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, my chavruta Sharon, we were studying this morning. She goes, "Oh, you need this poem," so I put it here because of her. So I don't think she's here. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, Beth, and then Wendy, and then I have to wrap up on time because it's for services.
Going back to verse 50, that begins Vamut. It's almost as if, and then jump ahead several verses, and then we find that Moshe is going to stay put and he's only going to see the land. He's not going in. All the language in between Vamut and everything after until we get to the point that he's not going in, it's all rationalization. We never, each one of us as individuals, there's always some land that we are never going to see because we can't. Our lives are finite, and there's always the next horizon, the next horizon, the next horizon. And as humans, we really try to rationalize everything in our path. And I really think that Tanakh has got all this stuff in there about Moshe disobeying, blah, blah, blah. God didn't like it, therefore he can't go in. It's all rationalization.
Yeah, I hear you, Beth. I'm going to have to move on. I hear you. But absolutely, it's like, is his death and mortality about sin and sort of constructing a narrative about that, or just because we die and we don't see what the next generation sees, right? Beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay, Wendy, quick, and then I'll end with a blessing.
I think it's pretty easy to see that Moses' negativity about the future of the Israelites is a little bit because of the fact that God never accepted his teshuvah. And I think that the fact that everything that he felt was due to him didn't come to pass, and I think his negativity for the future is a result of the fact that God never accepted his.
So you think that there's a bitterness there, an anger at God?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually going to do more interpreting of Moses and Moses' death later in services. So join us then, and then meanwhile, I want to bless all of us with what endures in our life. Feeling like what endures in our daily lives, but also like raising up the ephemeral to holiness and then just kind of letting it go. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Great to see you.
Shabbat Shalom.